Hi everyone, this week we're going to be looking at the concrete material. This is what it looks like with no water. You can see the bottom bit is wet and we've got this dry stuff. So this is the concrete material. It's using the same concrete texture that the walls used. It's multiplied with my Grunge Group, going into the diffuse of a principled shader. So the base color is getting darkened by this, and then we've got the roughness coming out of the base texture through a color ramp just to increase the contrast and raise the minimum from black up to, what have we got? 0.374. So it's not quite perfectly smooth anywhere on the surface. And then that's being multiplied by the Grunge Group. Coming out, the Grunge Group is purely black and white, but I've added 0.15 to it so that it's not multiplying down to 0. So that's what the roughness looks like. And then same thing with the bump. We've got the image texture being multiplied by this Grunge Group, and then that's going into the bump. So that in the dry area, it's affected by the bump, and it's some of the diffuse texture is being mapped into the bump in a sort of pseudo PBR way, which I tend to do a lot. This was made before the PBR craze hit, and those kind of textures were easily available, so I've been just using diffuse textures and then wrangling them around with color ramps and procedural noise to generate the other maps. Because we're multiplying the Grunge Group, which is purely black, it means that the wet areas go straight black, and it will depress them on the bump map, but it really just means that there's no bump there. So you can see up here, there's all this fine grain detail. Then down here, it's just smooth. So that together gives the concrete texture in the dry, and then the wet is the smooth, wet-looking surface. Now, going into the Grunge Group itself, it is two different noise textures and texture I've extracted to get the Z depth from. So I take from the geometry node a position. Now, what we're going to have to do here, if you're in a group, you can't use the node wrangler to view a node. So what we have to do is view the group inside the main material. Now go into the group, and whatever I want to view, I just connect into the output of the group. So we take the position XYZ from the geometry node. I put it through mapping so I can alter it however I want, and then I put it through the separate XYZ and I extract the Z information from it. So that's what that looks like. And then by tweaking the Z position here in the mapping, I can control how far up or down the gradient lies. Then from there I've put it through a color ramp, which looks like this, that inverts it and boosts the contrast a little bit. So now we get on to the first of the noise textures. There's two of them, and it looks like I have scaled them on the Z. So one is scaled by 0.1 and one's left at 1 on the Z, and both of them are scaled by 6 on the y-axis. So if you look at them, they are stretched in this direction, running up and down to give the appearance of like water running down. This one's not stretched, so we've got a stretched and then just a regular noise. So the unstretched noise is multiplied by the gradient, and we get this. The gradient, because it's black on the top, it clips out the top value here, and it just means that instead of being white, the bottom part of the gradient now has that noise texture. And then that is multiplied with the stretched texture. And then the final thing I'm doing is I'm inverting it again, and I'm just absolutely crushing it down so that the contrast is really harsh. Like that, you see the sharp waterline, and then there's sort of grunge and stuff falling off. This is a technique I use a lot, which is to make something like this, which has a lot of contrast and a lot of variation across it, and then just crush it to get the sharp edges. And because you've got all that little variation, when you crush it and boost the contrast, you get these sharp dots, and you get more interesting breakups of straight lines. So that is pretty much it. So that once this comes out, I've already explained how it affects the color, the roughness, and the bump separately. So I think that's everything for the concrete and the grunge group. Thanks for watching. Next week I'll be doing the water shader. Alright, thanks everyone. See ya.